Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. 𝚅𝚑𝚛𝚘𝚗 podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚘𝚑 𝚅𝚎𝚛𝚘𝚗, and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. If you can't tell already, I am so excited to introduce today's guest. She was born in the Cook Islands, raised in South Auckland, and lives in Samoa. Renowned for her wordplay, she has released 3 poetry books, contributed to a number of anthologies throughout her writing career. She wrote the script for the short film The Cat's Crying. She has been a curator, and she is a performer of her poetry. Her latest collection, which was distributed through independent publishing company Saufo'i Press, is called Awakened. When she is not being a mother or a writer, she is part of the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, which focuses on climate change and environmental issues affecting small island developing states in the Pacific. It's an honor to welcome to the show author Audrey Brown-Pereira. Welcome.
Kia ora and talofa lava. Wow, what a privilege also to be here this evening, this morning, no matter where you are in the world. Welcome to Samoa.
It's an honor to finally do this, even though we're doing this online. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My privilege to be here with you, the lady on everywhere.
And how are you doing over there in Samoa? It's not too hot, is it? I suppose you're used to the weather now.
You know, even us here in Samoa, it's hot. It's all the visitors are saying it's hot, and we're saying it is hot. So if you see some sweat pouring from my face or hear it dripping, that's climate change for you.
Exactly. And we will get on to that later on in our talanoa. Before we get started, I do like to ask guests just, for a brief introduction. Go ahead.
Sure. So my full names are Audrey Brown-Pereira Brown-Pereira. So I was born in the Cook Islands, as you said, raised in South Auckland, living in Samoa. My birth parents are Cook Island Samoan, and my birth father is 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚘𝚗𝚎, who is from the big island of Savaii, from the village of 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚘𝚗𝚒. And my birth mother is from the island of 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚘𝚗𝚒 in the Cook Islands. And my mum and dad, who raised me, Metua and Matangaro Brown, they are from the islands of 𝚃𝚒𝚑𝚛𝚎𝚘𝚗, and here we are. And I was born on the island of 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚘𝚗𝚒 in the Cook Islands. So I'm being more island-centric here rather than village-centric, but that's me in a nutshell, and raised in South Auckland and Papatoetoe.
Audrey, the daughter, how would you describe her?
So, part of my story, part of what I write about is actually being a child that was adopted. So you heard I make reference to my birth parents, and to be honest, I didn't know I was Samoan until I was in my early 20s. That's when I met my birth father. So there'll be a lot of people out there in New Zealand going, I thought she was a Cook Islander. I didn't know she was Samoan. So that kind of fills in that part of my story. So a lot of what I write is actually about the journey of my own life, being a child searching for their birth parents. And both Passages in Between Islands, which is my second book, and Threads of Te Waiwai, Kaleidoscope of Colours, explores that search to know more about myself through my biological parents. And, like a lot of young people, I'm blessed to have been raised by wonderful parents who always believed in me. So my parents, the Browns in Papatoetoe, they raised me ever since I was 8 months old. And so, in essence, they are my mum and dad. And so that's why you'll always see that reference of being Cook Island first, because my mum and dad that raised me are Cook Island, and Samoan. So it's always Cook Island Samoan. And it's really out of respect to my parents who raised me ever since I was a baby. So being a daughter, you know, we have our parents, but we're also daughters of many people in our families, and taking on the auntie role. So we're very lucky that we have these multiple hats. So when we say we're a daughter, we're not talking about a nuclear family. We're talking about how we sit in communities and extended family, ano, ainga, and that's a real blessing being a Pacific Island woman.
You mentioned you found out in your 20s that you were Samoan. When you were searching and reconnecting with that part of your identity, how did that impact you once you became a mother?
Well, to be quite honest, it's actually through my birth father how I met my husband. So I was very lucky that a lot of those issues were sorted before I got married. So, you know, one of the greatest blessings for me is that I met my husband through my birth father, and that's what brought me to Samoa. And so, if anything, it enriched the foundation of my life that gave me a fuller sense of self. So when I did get married, I brought along the journey of both families, all my families together. For my parents that brought me up, it was a bit of a challenge, because all of a sudden there is this other gentleman in their life that was not there from the beginning. But obviously, like all love stories and all stories of life, you know, there are many missing parts. And just to fill in another piece, my birth mother had actually died at a very young age. So maybe there was a story she was to tell me and my birth father, but never had the opportunity. So she died in a motorbike accident when she was about 28. So, you know, such is life, right? It's very cruel, but, you know, legacies live on in different ways. So the ironic thing for me is I look a lot like my birth mother. So that's a real blessing that she died young. I mean, I'll be 48 in July, and that through me, she lives on, and being a mum, being able to continue her legacy. And I'm her only child as well. So, you know, and a lot of my writing incorporates these biographical aspects in different ways with twists and turns, but it's very essential to who I am as a writer.
When I was doing research on you, people always comment about, they call you wordplay, they talk about your wordplay. How does one develop that style?
Well, you know, I talked about this before, in the sense that I always loved art. You know, my upbringing in South Auckland, they're working class parents. You know, my mum and dad worked in factories. My dad was a painter. My mum worked in Osbrooks, Arnott's. So I always just had this thing in my mind of being very creative. You know, you can travel many places in your mind with what you can create. So I always wanted to be an artist, and I did art right through high school, growing up in South Auckland. And that's where it kind of stems from, I suppose, in the sense that when I left New Zealand to live in the Cook Islands in the late 90s, I'd always been writing. You know, a lot of that is encouraged in school, which is a real blessing. We love teachers because teachers are the gateway to opportunity. And just blessed with teachers that saw some light in me and encouraged me to write. So I'd always been writing at high school and right through uni, bits and pieces. And when I went to live in the Cook Islands, something freed me from conventions. There was something about breaking away from New Zealand, you know, living in the Cook Islands, Rarotonga, on a small island, and just being able to kind of shake the shackles of what is expected and just be free to play with words. And that's what I did. So my first book, Threads of Te Vāvai, Kaleidoscope of Colours, is an exploration of that freedom, because, you know, there's so many writers out there, But at the end of the day, what is our point of difference? And for me as an artist, as a creative, a word player, why not play with words on the page? So that's where it stems from. And living in the Cook Islands, before I came to Samoa, was such, I don't know, it's so invigorating. So invigorating to be on an island, away from everybody else, and not get caught up with what the Joneses are doing, if that makes sense.
If you reflect on those first few months settling in Samoa, now it's home. It's like you're in your zone. This is your paradise. But those first few months there, how difficult was it for you to find your place?
That's an excellent question. And if you're able to read passages in between islands, that kind of gives you a little insight. So basically, I moved here to Samoa in 2003 with a 3-month-old baby after serving as a diplomat for the Cook Islands government. At the time, I was the acting High Commissioner for the Cook Islands government in New Zealand. So moving to Samoa with a 3-month-old baby, to a Samoa that I'd only visited, had my kafaus, come for the holiday, high five and go back. It was such a challenge. It was a challenge because, I was one of those aunties back in the day that would travel all around and here you go, here's a gift from auntie, bye, or take you to the movie. I was never the auntie that would babysit you and change your pampers. I was like the cool auntie would do cool things and then bye. So it was really, really challenging for me to be, married and then a mom in Samoa that I didn't grow up with, and learning a lot about the Samoa very quickly. I'm very blessed that my husband's family were so loving and giving and tolerant of me in those beginning days, because I really struggled. And I write about that in passages in between islands. And so to give you context, my experience of Samoa is from an urban apia experience. So I don't live in the rural areas. I live in an urban environment. My husband's family are business people. My husband is a senior public servant. So, and even my own family are well established here. We are from Saufo'i Press Outside. My birth father was an established civil servant and then person in the business community. So when I share my experiences, I must be upfront and say it's an urban experience. And when I say that, because there are a contrast of experience of Samoan women, Pacific Island women, and women in general here in Samoa, depending on where you live, and also in your relationships within your extended family. So, but I still struggled, but a lot of it was really just the change of life, going from a diplomat that would go to this function and that function to staying at home, breastfeeding, a baby that you have to learn new skills. Your own mum is not there to help you. So, and that's very common for a lot of women going through the transition of being a new mum. So I just had a double whammy of being a new mom and then also moving to a new country at the time, in 2002.
I want to go into your latest poetry collection. Congratulations. It was released in May 2023 this year, fam. If you are watching, check the bio. The link to Saufo'i Press will be in the bio. Click on it. You can purchase the book. Follow Audrey for all updates on her life, on her writing, and just other things that she's involved in. You will not be disappointed, fam. Click all the links in the bio and purchase, support our Pasifika artists, our writers, our Pasifika women, our Samoan women, Cook Island women. Come on, fam. Click the link right now. I will be reminding you throughout this talanoa. So let's talk about Awakened. I have to ask about the title because it's like, okay, first of all, let's shout out 𝚅𝚎𝚛𝚘𝚗𝚒, Tamaki Makaurau, based artist, and the beautiful cover art. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about the cover art first and then we'll talk about the title.
Oh, look, shout out to 𝚅𝚎𝚛𝚘𝚗𝚒, who by chance is actually my āinga through my 𝚃𝚑𝚛𝚎𝚘𝚗 Mariner side. So that was after the fact, well after the fact we'd already chosen her piece of artwork, that we found out that we were family. So, that's just a big blessing, and it just adds to that alofa of what awakened is. One of the things that I really love about Serene's work is it takes me home. With Cook Islanders, we have tīwaiwai, which are beautiful quilts that can be done on a communal level with lots of women. It embodies so many things, but the essence is love. And it reminded me of the many tīwaiwai that I've been gifted through my own family, from my mum, made from aunties and, great aunts. And, that idea of it being a modern take on weaving, and even the matte aspect of contemporary texture and layers. It just spoke to me when we were looking for artwork to be the cover of Awakened. So my publisher, Faith Wilson of Saufo'i Press, we talked about what I would like on the cover. And it was really important for me to have a Pacific Island woman artist be that person that creates something or has something to be the cover. And a lot of it is really about woman empowerment. Having a book is a vehicle for myself, of course, but why not bring others along? And so that to me is what is so symbolic about Serene's work. It reminds me of patchwork, embroidery. It takes me to my parents' lounge in Papatoetoe, where you've got embroidered cushion covers. You've got, obviously the tīwaiwai only come out on special occasions, but it is just that marrying of my Cook Island and Samoan side coming together through this artist in a very contemporary take of it. So, one of the things about Awakened is one of the first poems that the book opens up with is my response to Serene's work. Because it took me to my childhood, and it was just so important to write it. Who are you? Where do you come from? Where you've been your whole life? So I write about growing up in South Auckland in the way that I do. So and it's been really interesting sharing it with family, and some of them laughing, go, oh yes, I can see Nana, she's cooking, and oh yes, pig's head and flounder, and then so it was really, really, I was just so moved by it that I wrote that poem inspired by Serene's work.
Oh, shout out 𝚅𝚎𝚛𝚘𝚗𝚒. Check the bio. I will put her information in there. You can follow her, on Instagram and check out her work. Well, okay, let's talk about Awakened and how you come up with the name for this collection. Did the name come after you had written everything? You had kind of compiled the work, or is it something that long ago in your mind it was festering there? You were like, I'm going to do something with this.
Well, I usually take a long time to get a body of work together. I mean, look, my first book was in 2002. My second book was in 2014. And then, 2023. But to be quite honest, I had an experience where it was a negative experience, but a good experience, and being not rejected, but something that I thought I was going to get on a creative level, it didn't come about. And I thought, wow, why not? This stuff is amazing. Why didn't they take it to the next level? And what it did, that sense of rejection was like, it really shook me up, because I realized that my creativity was not something on the back burner, but something inside of me that was burning to come out. So all those things you always put on the back burner that you think, oh, later, later, that rejection actually showed me that I was angry. And I thought, what? And it really stirred me to say, stop waiting around, Audrey. Stop talking about it. Do something. And it woke me up. And so that's where awakened came from. It was a play on words, but it was also like we have desires, we want to do things, but often we just sit there and we think it's going to happen. But if you really want something to happen, you got to make it happen. So what I did was turn a disappointment into an opportunity. And that's where awakened arose. So I really started the body of work in about thinking about it to that 2021, but then reaching out to faith in 2022. So that's why, even though there are some older pieces in Awakened, it's probably been the fastest track of writing I've done ever. And it excites me that I managed to do it. Turning a negative into a positive, not sitting on my backside and saying, oh, poor me. It's almost like, well, screw you. I'm going to show you. So, yeah, and I did.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I've had a number of creatives on the show, a number of musicians, like artists, a number of like playwrights. I've had writers on the show, and many of them have shared this kind of moment where it's like you think you're like, surely this is it. I'm going to get this grant, or I'm going to get this award, or it doesn't happen. And then rather than sitting around, they've all pretty much been like, nah, stuff you. I'm doing, and it's so interesting. It's so cool to hear you and be like, oh, okay. You just got to do it. I mean, a lot of, these artists have been from New Zealand, and they've talked about, just with grants and things like that, and just an ability to get through that next stage, and just not even, at the end of the day, they're just like, nah, this is my art. I'm going to put it out there according to my rules, and I'm going to do it my way. And it's awesome. It's so amazing. I love to see it. Of course, money and grants and things, awards, of course they help, but I love how you've said, look, you reached out to Serene, turns out your family, but you connected there, then you connected with Faith. There's always someone out there who is willing to, uplift someone else and come on board and share that creative energy, and it's cool. It's really
absolutely
cool.
Rosa. One of the fundamental things I believe in is that you've got to step outside your comfort zones. Rejection is all part of life. It's all part of the creative process. But if you want creative dreams to come true, you've got to be bold. You've got to take that step. And the most important person you have to believe in is yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself and your worth, don't expect other people to. And so that's one of the important lessons that I've learned over many years, is that if you want something, you've got to make pathways to create it, to make it happen. Faith, keep your faith, pray about it. But God also gave us gifts of connecting other people, and especially now with social media platforms where you can message people. You can send an email, you can Google the types of publishers and other people that you think might connect with your work. Remember, I live in Samoa. I don't live in New Zealand, and I'm very proud of the fact that I live here in Samoa and was able to achieve this huge milestone, and even passages in between islands with living in Samoa, because this is why it's so important that our island-based artists be bold. We've all got data here in Samoa and the Cook Islands, Fiji, everywhere in the Pacific. And but also, don't be scared to be embarrassed, Not everybody's going to love you, but for every 5 people, maybe there's one person that gets you.
Mm. What are some of the other themes that you talk about? Obviously, it's a huge step, stepping out of your comfort zone, really going for it and putting out writing that you want out there, right? It's like you've made these decisions, you've connected with the necessary people who are going to support you. What are some other themes that people can expect from this piece of work, this piece of art?
Sure. Well, look, one of the key themes about Awakened is woman empowerment. I kind of have alluded to it earlier in these discussions about putting ourselves first. Because when I talk, I'm talking about myself as a Pacific Island woman, as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, as a professional. We put everybody else first. And so what Awakened is about is like saying, come on, you've got to make time for yourself. Doesn't mean you don't love people, doesn't mean that you will care for people less. But how about giving some time to yourself? So there are a lot of stories or poems in the collection that are about reconnecting with who we are as women, whether that's about our body, whether it's about the choices we make, whether it's about our observations of our children, our worries for their future, or pieces of wisdom and advice we want to give them. So that's one element of Awakened. And then there are other things, living on a small island of Samoa, the environment, climate change, the elements, insects. So I also share what it's like in my own way of these impacts of climate change, of pollution to Pacific Island people. And I do it in my own way. It's very creative. It's very different. And that's why being a word player, it gives it another element of storytelling that is not always so obvious. So, when people have the opportunity to read my work, they'll see words scattered all over the page, and it's like, oh my goodness, I think there's a print layout problem here. But in actual fact, it's intentional. And then when I read the work, it gives a whole new scope and layers of richness to it. So that's why I go on to that aspect of being an artist, a word player. Like I said, I've said in previous times, there's only one Albert Wendt, and I'm Audrey. I'm on the fringes or the far ends of the galaxy. And I love it. I love to be myself, and that's what I celebrate. I celebrate, breaking conventions, being nonconformist in the way I write. And a lot of it is because I can. And so can you, should you choose to.
I love hearing you read your poetry. And I say this because, a lot of the times when you're like reading a book and I've talked about this before, like audiobooks, and sometimes when you're reading a book, I'm super curious, like, how does this writer sound? Like, because you just kind of read, the words are flying off the page. But I really love it when poets like read their work, because it's so interesting just listen to you talk, and I'm like, oh, she really is like how she performs her poetry. It's awesome.
To be quite honest, I just had my book launch in Samoa on Saturday, and I've already got people going, Audrey, it's a good book, Audrey, but we want the audio version. We'll help you fundraise for the audio version. So that's another conversation, Faith Wilson or Saufo'i Press and others. But it's true. We're a very oral, oral traditions are rich, and it just connects my poetry to a whole new audience where when they read it, they have, this is very strange. But then when they hear me read it, they go, oh, wow, I get it. So, that's something that I really am seriously considering for even my previous books, Threads of Te Waiwai, Kaleidoscope of Colours, and Passages in Between Islands. But I'll have to do some more research into it. But apparently it's easy. That's what I've been told. But, you know, the truth is in the pudding. So watch these.
You heard it here, family. You heard it right here. Okay, maybe it's not the first place you've heard it, but you heard it here today on the Reads with Rosa podcast. There is hope for anyone who's listening who can support Saufo'i Press, who can support Audrey and make this happen. Everyone knows I go on and on and on. I'm sure people are sick of me talking about audiobooks. I'm such an advocate for audiobooks, so I would be even more stoked if you put that out there. No pressure, by the way, but I'm just saying. You heard it. You heard it here, fam. You heard it here.
Love it.
You know, being a mother with daughters and putting out a book like this, man, they must be so proud of you.
Well, you know what? There's nothing like your own family that keeps you humble. I've got a 14-year-old, and she never wanted to come to the book launch on Saturday, just recently passed. You know, because she thinks my stuff is really strange, and you know, Mummy, you don't make money from it. So, you know, that's her just being herself. And then my oldest is like, you know, counting the money. And with my husband, he's an economist. This is just not his world. But you know, what I do love about him is that he's very supportive of me, even if he doesn't understand me or my work. He's in logistical mode of like, okay, what do you need? Okay, all right. So in other words, there's nothing like your own family to keep you grounded. So they love me. They're supportive of me. But you know, like a lot of things, it's mummy's world that they don't get, and I'm okay with that. I just hope maybe later on in life they'll be able to read my words and have light bulb moments of going, oh, Mum.
Very cool. You know, I was thinking, because earlier you did remind us that there were long periods of years before, you know, like 2002, 2014, 2023, between your work. And with all of this going on, fam, if you're listening or if you're watching, that's not to say that Audrey wasn't writing. Like, she has been a curator of work. She has been contributing. She's contributed to other anthologies. You know, she's been doing her thing. I wanted to know, where do you write your poetry? With long periods of years in between the different collections, are you someone that writes it in a notebook, or is it a computer, or are you now on your phone? I mean, like, what's your process in terms of the writing aspect?
So, you know, one of the things I try to encourage people that are interested in publishing is that whatever you write, put it electronically somewhere, even if you email it to yourself on your Gmail. So that's what I've always done. So if I've written something, I just email it to myself. So you build a body of work. And that's why it's always taken me forever, because I've always basically done bit by bit by bit by bit, you know, and I'm not a prolific writer. I'm not like my friend Lani Went Young that pumps out so many books in a year. God bless her. I wish I could be. You know, that's just my creative process. Very slow. But, you know, what I say, if you're writing, collect a body of work, email yourself, just keep collecting it electronically. I've got terrible handwriting. So, you know, the thought of handwriting my work, no, only because I can't even read my own handwriting. So, I write a lot of my work on a laptop. And I've noticed in recent time, though, that when I was writing Awakened, I would actually use my phone if I was in a row and just write notes to myself and then email myself and then email myself again with editing it just to get it moving and then format it properly on the laptop, so to speak. So it's interesting how you talked about the writing in different ways. And, yeah. So you'll see that intermittently I've contributed to different anthologies. And some of those works have appeared in those bigger collections or after the fact. So, you know, the way I see it, we live in an electronic world where even if you live in the islands, you can look for opportunities to publish, even contribute to anthologies. It's just really being alert and, hey, Google, you know, Google. You don't have to know the players. It helps, but sometimes you find things by chance. And it goes back to what I talked about and being bold to put your work out there. Like I said before, rejection is a part of life. It's part of the creative process. Don't take it personally. What may not work for that person, you may find it works for something else. But you just have to keep doing it. If you give up on yourself, then you have no one else to blame but yourself.
You know, I have to mention this because I was fangirling a bit when I was looking at the people who were at your recent launch in Samoa. You know, all these amazing, just celebrating women, Samoan women, trailblazers. And I needed to ask you, like, you know, when you get together with people like Lani Went Young and 𝚅𝚐𝚑𝚑𝚎𝚑, oh my God, you are all writers. What do you talk about? I had to ask. I was like, I'm so curious what these writers talk about. You probably don't even talk about writing, I'm guessing. I don't know.
That's a really good question. Look, I'll be honest from the outset. When I write, I write alone. You know, I know a lot of people like writers group. They like to be in with lots of people and exchange and share their work. And I'm not one of those people. So when I meet with other writers, it's actually with them as human beings, you know, silly talk or encouraging, you know, hey, what are you working on? Oh, great, you know. With Lani Went Young, what I really love and admire about Lani is just how she's such a fighter in the sense that she's always advocating for Pacific Island writing, Pacific Island creatives. And look at what she's done. And just bringing that world of Samoa, that creative space on a global sphere. And she's so positive, you know, like she doesn't like poetry. She's told me she prefers the audio too. But what I love about her is how affirming she is in pushing us to write, you know, making it known that, look, come on, you can do it. What are you doing? Come on, get it out. And so it's that kind of peer support of encouraging writers to write, if that makes sense. So, so when we do meet up, it's really just talking about things we might be working on, but also, you know, friendship, motherhood, what's going on in people's lives. And it's just that human to human connection, but it just having that peer support living here in Samoa about creating the work and getting the work out there. You know, to be quite honest, I've only recently met 𝚅𝚐𝚑𝚎𝚑. And she's recently come back to Samoa again. And, you know, I remember being at Auckland University and she was reading for a postgraduate course that I gate crashed with another friend of mine, Veronica Vaigai. You know, she was reading Where We Once Belonged, and I thought, oh, wow. You know, it was like, oh, wow. So I totally get your fangirling because it was so amazing to meet her in recent times. So she's 𝚅𝚐𝚑𝚎𝚑, the human being now, you know, and just doing some amazing work here in Samoa. In fact, I think July the 4th, I'm going to be doing a reading with 𝚅𝚑𝚑𝚎, another poet, Caroline Gabbard, and also Selena Tusi-Talamash. Selena was also supposed to come to my launch, but she only just arrived at the airport. So, yeah, we would have had more amazing people. And then I'd also like to mention Letui Manau'usina, Dr. Emma Cruzewa'i, who is a personal mentor and friend of mine. She is an amazing woman, academic, writer, But, you know, she's an amazing human being in the sense of her humility and how she is so positive at encouraging others to write and to get the work out there too, and just having that personal connection of being women, you know, and that's a real blessing. And she is an amazing, amazing woman who has so many books. So those that, you know, I think, who's this, Emma? Please Google, because then you'll find out just how amazing she is with the many books that she has written that have been published in New Zealand, Samoa, and are translated into so many languages globally.
Check the bio, fam. I'm telling you, we will link these amazing women, these trailblazers, these Pacific writers. The link will be in the bio on how you can connect, how you can purchase books. I mean, it's I'm just a bit speechless right now. Get a grip. Okay. Some of the quotes which I read, the thank you for sharing the article. I think it was the Observer. Thank you for sharing the article. It was such a good article. And these are some quotes from the guests that were at the book launch. Or okay, so someone says, no, sorry, not someone. I just don't want to I don't want to say the name and then get it wrong. So I'm just saying to anyone listening, here are some quotes, beautiful quotes from the recent book launch in Samoa for Audrey's Awakened. For the brown girl, your words are prayers of resistance, resilience, and celebration. Your words dance in liminal spaces, resist devolution, and circumnavigate conventions. Here's another one. The creative symbolism of Brown-Pereira's work on the page as text and in the air through her performance creates a sense of belonging and woman empowerment, also amplifying the impacts of climate change on Pacific Island people. To be honest, I wanted to list like everyone quoting, but I was like, don't be that guy, Losa. Do not be that guy. So, I mean, and these are just some from the launch, but I know that people who follow you and have followed your work, past works, I mean, they must be super, super excited about this new collection. Like, how does that make you feel when there are people who say these things about your writing, about your work, your poetry?
You know, can I be very honest? You know, living on an island away from a lot of people and working in isolation as a creative, I hardly get any feedback, to be honest. And so it's been amazing this recent time with talking about Awakened with different people, like people talking about how they've loved my work for so long and all these revelations that, to be honest, I never knew. I never knew that they love my work. And it's been really beautiful, to be honest, because, you know, you write, you believe in your work, you put it out there, or maybe you get a few reviews, but it's really this experience of the talking for Awaken where I received direct feedback. Oh, I love your work. Oh, I've loved it for a long time, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, wow, there's a whole audience I didn't know that you know, like connecting directly with the audience that tell you that they love your work. It sounds really odd, but it's because I kind of live in my own head and I do these things because I believe it, I'm going to get it out there. I'm always like, run and do it, throw it to the world and then run away. And that's why for Awakened, I'm being, you know, I'm getting a little bit older and I'm realizing I can't do that anymore. I've got to meet with people. I've got to talk about my work because it's the legacy of our words that live beyond us. And that's an important thing that Awakened has made me realize, is that, you know, sharing your creative work is a blessing, and being able to speak with people about it, a greater one, because it's that direct interaction with people that you can provide different insights about your work, and then they can share their interpretation of your work, or ask you questions, or have insight that you never thought. And so I'm really loving it. I'm really loving it. And we're in the internet age. We have been for a time, yes, but we're global without even having to leave the islands. And so it's been an amazing experience to have this feedback, that it's really kind of very heartfelt, actually, because I've had to message a few very close people of mine and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that there are people that love my work. And that's not false humility, genuinely, and just hearing it from their words, their voices directly, very, very humbling, and yeah, I'm very grateful.
I'm excited. I can't wait to go. I'm going home next week. I'm going back to New Zealand next week. We're just wrapping up summer school, and then it'll be like 6 weeks of vacation, and I cannot wait I've got a whole list of books that I need to be buying. This is on the list, because a lot of the times, it's hard to get books here. I've had Dahlia send me books, but I can't wait. I've got a list of books of from Pasifika authors that, I hear about these launches, and I hear about, all of you out there, putting yourselves out there, taking that big step. And I'm like, oh, I got to get back to New Zealand so I can buy the book and, get that. So I'm looking forward to just getting an actual copy. I can't wait.
Can't
wait. Faith Wilson, shout out to Saufo'i Press, who published the book. I want to shout out Saufo'i Press because, okay, wait, let me just backtrack a bit and talk about what you mentioned before with Lani Went. So Lani Went Young. When I started my Bookstagram account back in 2018 or 2019, I started adding authors. I started researching these authors because I came across a blog. I was so curious, who are the Pacific Island authors? I was connecting with all my BIPOC authors, my favorite authors that I read through school, that my students are reading. But I was just searching, come across Lani's blog. She's got lists on lists on lists of it. And that's how I started this whole journey of trying to connect with Pasifika authors, trying to put them on blast. I mean, I can't buy every book, but if I can just share their work online, do something on Twitter that gets their name out there, that's what I feel is my little bit of a contribution to support, people like yourself. So it started from Lani, from her blog. And then, in terms of publishing, I met Dahlia through Instagram, through Bookstagram. Then I, heard about Saufo'i Press. I can't remember who had put it on there. And I was like, what? There's another publishing. Clicked on that link, got connected. And then, of course, with Cecilia and Lani and Tato Publishing. I mean, I could go on and on. As you can tell, I'm super fangirl. But I say all this to say, I was so excited when I saw that Saufo'i Press was publishing your book. It kind of took, I was really shocked when I was like, Audrey's putting out a book. Wait, did I miss the memo? Wait, how did I not see that? Then I went back and I was looking at your fruit and I was like, oh, why does she have such a big gap in between releasing the books? And I was like, there must be a reason. There's always a reason. But when I saw Saufo'i Press, I was like, oh, how did you get connected? How did you connect with Faith? Was it online or was it through someone or?
So basically, when I was interested in publishing a book, I talked to a very close cousin of mine, and Catherine George, and she suggested Faith. Faith's name was out there because I think she'd got a fellowship for something, and she was, she had a lot of things online, If you Google Faith Wilson of Saufo'i Press, you'll see what an amazing editor, amazing writer, amazing poet she is. And my cousin was saying, hey, why don't you check out Saufo'i Press? This is the link, check it out. And then someone else mentioned her as well. And then I searched her, I Googled her, and then I reached out to her on Instagram. And I said, oh, my name is blah, 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 and I'm really interested in doing 𝚃𝚑𝚛𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘 email address. And then I thought, oh gosh, she's come back. I got to act fast. So basically what I did was I did a one-page concept about Awakened, a brief bio, links to a few poems with a few poems, and I sent it straight away to her because, in the publishing scene, you got to act fast while the iron is hot, and you can't always make assumptions that people know you. So I did the one-page concept with everything on it, about Awakened, a little bit about me, etc., a few poems. And then we started talking, and so I reached out to her in 22. I really wanted to get Awakened published last year in 2022, mainly because it had been 20 years since I published my first book, 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚎 𝚅𝚐𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚑, 2002. But it just ended up to be a blessing that we pushed it out to 2023 because we thought, what are we rushing for? And yeah, it was just an amazing process. You know what I really respect about Faith? She's extremely humble, so intelligent, such a fabulous writer, and she's just, she's got an eye for words. So she's got an editor's eye, she's got a writer's eye, and you know what I love about her? Saufo'i Press has a very clear vision of what it wants to achieve. So she's also got that eye for knowing exactly what she wants. And the whole editing process, working along with Faith, has been fabulous. So we've only met once in person when I was traveling through New Zealand last year. But for most of it, it's been going back and forth on email and Zoom calls. And she's such a professional. That's what I really like. One thing with me, because of my background as a regional public servant, I'm very professional about timelines, being responsive. So it was really lovely to work with a creative who was equally as professional, having turnaround, being, communicating clearly and following things through. And, it's been fabulous to work with her. But as an editor, how insightful she is to push you gently to go to things that you knew you had to deal with, but you didn't want to. And she's just got a gentle way of making you look at the words again. And she's fabulous. I love Faith Wilson. And for her to have this baby of Saufo'i Press, and for my book to be her second book, to Simone Caho's Healed. Oh, wow. And, the other great thing is that it connects me to a younger audience as well, because she's got that insightfulness of what's going on. So she's able to kind of give another viewpoint, because there's always that threat of being complacent as a writer, right? And things are always changing and emerging. And she's got also that artistic creative background through herself and through her family. And so it's just been great. It's been a perfect complementary relationship on a creative level and a professional level that is hard to explain. But yeah, shout out to Faith Wilson and Saufo'i Press, number one.
Yes, shout out to Faith and Saufo'i Press. This is what we have to do. We need to get our own people out there creating these opportunities, creating publishing companies, putting our books, our stories, our narratives out there. So support our publishing companies. Check the bio. If you have no idea what Audrey and I are just going on and on about here, so important. Check out saufo'ipress.com. Check out Simone Caho's book, Healed, which is also was the first book, Audrey's second book. I mean, I know Faith has a plan. I know she's not just like, she is definitely taking her time making these important selections on what they are putting out into the wide, wide world, fam. I tell you, Pacific Island writers, we are everywhere. Let's put it on blast. So big flowers and big alofa to going out to Faith and Saufo'i Press. I wanted to talk about Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, the work that you do there. Man, I had sorry, I didn't mean to click like that. I had Gemma Nelson.
Yes, Gemma
She was
Nelson. Love
she
Gemma.
shouted
Love
you
Gemma.
out. She loves you, so she
I
shouted you
love
out.
Gemma.
And when we were talking, man, I learned so much. I thought I knew what she was doing. No, Losa, I didn't. No, you did not, because it wasn't until I actually got to sit down and chat with her that I realized, oh my God, there is so much more out there that we, the average person, don't know about. The everyday average, we don't know. So it was such a honor to have her on here, and she shouted you out. And it was so funny when she mentioned, and I was like, oh my God, like Audrey the writer? I was like, oh, is that Audrey the writer? As if I knew you. I didn't, but I mean, not like that, not personally, but I was like, oh my God. That's when I realized that you do this you wear many hats, but this is another major hat that you wear. Can you share a little bit about this aspect of your journey?
Yeah. So, as I shared before, I'm a regional public servant. I work for the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, SPREP for short. Our headquarters are in Samoa here. We have over 120 staff, and we serve the Pacific Island countries and territories, 21 Pacific Island countries and territories, and we have 5 metropolitan members of Australia, New Zealand, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States. So our mandates are in climate change, the oceans, environmental monitoring and governance, waste management and pollution control. So I am not an environmental expert, but I'm privileged to work with my colleagues that are. So my role is I'm the executive officer. I serve the Director General of SPREP. So basically I'm a general dog's body. I can do everything. As a writer, see, this is one of the things I want to share. My skill set as a writer allows me to be in different spaces. So, I do a lot of writing of things, a lot of writing reports, preparing policy things, you name it, I'm doing it. And I'm often that person behind the scenes, organizing a lot of work for the Director General and on behalf of our members. So, if you are in the climate change space and have been to the climate negotiations in Egypt, Madrid, Katowice, you may have met me at the Moana Blue Pacific Pavilion. So, my colleagues and I, we support the Pacific Small Island Developing States negotiators in addressing the challenges of climate change. And what we try to do with the support of the Aotearoa New Zealand, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, is create a space within the negotiations for our Pacific people to call home, but also to bring other people into our space to learn firsthand the impacts of climate change on Pacific Island people. So, my work is varied. It's many things, but I love it. You know why I love it? Because we're serving our people and we're serving our environment. One of the key things about SPREP is the conservation and protection of the environment for present and future generations, and when you think about that, that's the ethos of us as Pacific Island people. That's just some of the little things that I do and serve our region.
Man, do people know that you are also a writer? Like in that space?
Well, I have to share a funny thing. I was very blessed that in Egypt last year, Sharm el-Sheikh COP27, I was the special poetry curator for the Mana Moana Pasifika Voices, where we worked with Storybox, we worked with Mana Moana, SPREP, funded by Aotearoa New Zealand, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And basically, that's the first time a lot of people realized, I had this person actually, a colleague from another agency saying, why did you do that? Who are you? And because they were so rude to me, I said, darling, just Google me. And that shut her up anyway. In all honesty, and another thing I did last year was for the Commonwealth Foundation, they asked for a poem on loss and damage and climate change and sea level rise for their meeting in Sierra Leone, I think. Forgive me if I've got the wrong country. And so I couldn't go there and I couldn't do it live. So I pre-recorded. They're taking pictures of us in the water. And this actually screened in Sharm el-Sheikh by chance for a side event. And so I had all these people come to the Moana Pacific Pavilion going, oh, you're the poet. Oh, and, because I have that regional public servant, hat on, it's like, oh, yes, thank you, and then I have to serve people, that's how humble I am, a multitasker that can read you a poem, organize beautiful poetry, but if our listeners out there could please listen to and watch the beautiful artwork of the Mana Moana Pasifika Voices. So that's part 2 of part 1, which was Mana Moana Pacific Voices, that the beautiful, amazing Dr. Carlo Miller, she curated. So if you could include that in your link, you get many. And, there's amazing poets, John Pule, Konai Freeman, 𝚃𝚑𝚛𝚎𝚊𝚎𝚎, and our young up-and-coming ones, and Kathy Kitchener. These are just a few of the names. So please. So the one that I curated was Mana Moana Pasifika Voices, and the beautiful Dr. Carlo Miller, Mana Moana Pacific Voices, which was the trailblazer for the series.
Oh my goodness. It will be in the bio, fam. Check the bio. Oh my goodness. I feel like, can we mention any other, right? I'm just like, do we need to mention any more names?
John Pule,
my
I did. I hope I mentioned John Pule as well, because
you did.
That was, I just love his work, his words, his artwork, amazing. And it was a real privilege to be able to bring these beautiful poems to a new generation, complemented with a new generation. So please check it out, people.
Yes. Link in the bio. Click on it, fam. Oh my God. We have so many gems that are going to be linked in the bio for this episode. Of course, I'm going to check it out myself first. But we're going to put it out there. We're going to give these amazing folks their flowers. Oh, wow, Audrey. I am just... Wow. Let me stop. Wellness, well-being and health. How do you... I imagine you're a very busy person during the day. How do you unwind? How do you look after yourself? How do you look after yourself? Self-care.
Well, sure. Look, some people join a new church, and over the past couple of years, I joined a gym, and I do CrossFit. And the reason why I want to share this with people is because, once you have babies and all of that, and you start putting everybody first, and when we don't look after ourselves, the weight can pile up. And for me, that was my life. I put on over 30, 40 kgs. And it was just life, because you're looking after the kids, you're looking after your husband, you're looking after everybody else except yourself. So I'm so blessed that I'm now part of a gym community, CrossFit up here, 𝚅𝚎𝚛𝚘𝚗, Samoa, and I'm part of the 5 a.m. bosses, and we do CrossFit. And my workout buddy is Rebecca Polistico, a Filipino woman, amazing woman, who is 63, turning 64 years old. She picks me up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, and we go to the gym Monday to Friday for the 5 o'clock session. And if that doesn't inspire anybody, I don't know what will. But you know what? The most important thing to do is make some time for yourself, people. especially us ladies, especially us Pacific Island women. Hey, I've got the turtle thighs. I mean, I was blessed with beauty and everything else and intellect too, but the health genes were always a challenge. And so, some exercise in the day has been one of the most invigorating things I've ever done in recent time, other than write my book, and also have a community. Part of a soft launch I did here in Samoa before Awaken came out was I thought, I want to do something, on social media. So what I did was a reel with the help of my cousin, Chrissy. We got some raw footage from other ladies in our 5 a.m. class, and we put the footage together. And then I did the audio of a poem that is in Awaken called Lift Yourself Up. So anyone can go on my Instagram page, and even on Facebook, it's a public reel. You can have a look at it. But what I love about it is that it has connected with so many people that don't even like poetry. Maybe they never thought about poetry, but some of the words really resonate and connect with them. And then you've got the beautiful images of women of all shapes and sizes of their journey. So when we talk about health and well-being, I'm not talking about being skinny. No. I'm talking about health and well-being of the mind, the spirit, and the wholeness of our body, of how we feel, how we connect with it again. And that's what I want to celebrate. And so lift yourself up. You can go on my Facebook or Instagram. It's a public reel there, and have a look. And it's a celebration. And we're all island women in all shapes and sizes. And I start out with my very first competition. And, when I look at it, I'm so vain too. At first, I wanted to edit that out. But then I thought, no, Audrey, it's very important to share that, because it can maybe connect with somebody going through different things themselves. And they can go, gee, if Audrey can do it, anybody can.
Absolutely. Thank you for the reminders about, taking care of ourselves as women. I can't remember where I read it, but you said something. You talk about Awaken being that celebration. You're celebrating women, and you've alluded to it many times throughout this talanoa. But what I really liked is this part where you talk about, everything we do. You mentioned it earlier. We always, as Pacific women, we always put ourselves last. Everyone else comes before us, because in our community, there's no I. Whatever communities we are part of, it's always a we, it's a collective, it's a village kind of, so thank you for those reminders to take care of self first, because it's so important. And many times, like, everything you said resonates with me, because many times with work, I do forget, as much as I try and, have some downtime, but sometimes, you get caught up in work and you forget that you cannot be any help to anyone if you're struggling, if you're sick, if you're not all there, 100% in terms of your health. So I love those reminders. Such important, timely, priceless. Very important.
Because we can't help the ones we love if we're not okay. And it's not about being selfish. It's actually about being in an optimal place where we can give that love and help for those that we do love. And that's why it's a contradiction, but sometimes we have to start with ourselves first, so that we can be those role models for our own families as well, especially our children.
When you talked about that earlier, that it's not a selfish act, when you talked about that resonated, and I almost cried, but I was holding it in. And then when you were talking about health again, I was like, oh, another reminder, because but I appreciate it. I appreciate the sharing. Is there a book that you'd like to recommend, something that you've read, or this is an opportunity for you to plug Awakened, new book, Awakened? What would you like to do?
Well, obviously, I want to plug Awaken because, that's why I'm here, to share that beauty and insight and inspiration for all of us. But, I'm going to give the opportunity to talk about a few other books, if you don't mind, that
Of course.
I'd love to share with our listeners out there on the airwaves. Just wait one moment.
Okay.
I actually went into my library and I got a whole lot of books for consideration. But a lot of it is really just, they may not be in print anymore, but I just love them. So one of the first books I want to share. Oh, can you see
Go
it?
that way. Yep. Up. Come closer. Oh, yes. There we go.
Don't worry, I'll take a photo afterwards. Anyway, it's called The Learner's Samoan Dictionary, and it's written by my husband's late grandmother, 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚑𝚎𝚑. And what I love about this book is that, it was written, in the 80s, I believe so. I have to double check. And it's a bilingual Samoan dictionary, which she wrote with a foresight for her grandchildren. And, she was a trailblazer herself, 𝚃𝚑𝚛𝚎𝚘𝚑 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚑𝚎𝚑. And this is just one of many books that she wrote as being an educator. I think she was the first Samoan woman to be principal of Apia Primary School. She was also the first woman to be a public service commissioner here in Samoa. So, and to think in her rich life that she was able to write, so this is definitely a shout out, and it's an accessible book as well. So it's called The Learner's Samoan Dictionary by 𝚃𝚑𝚛𝚎𝚘𝚑 𝚅𝚎𝚘𝚑. So that's one book, a shout out to. And then another book I've got here, it's called also A Full Life by Mamoi Maliatoa Banraiki. And it's actually published by New Leaf Publications, which is her publishing company here in Samoa, and it's beautiful. If you are ever privileged to read Momoi's work, she is an artist. She is an amazing artist. She is a poet, a writer. You've got to read her work. So this is one example of her beautiful work available here in Samoa. And then I would be remiss to not mention Where We Once Belonged, Where It All Began, 𝚅𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑𝚑 in a book: humor, gossip, things that happen that shouldn't be happening, and things that should be happening. So it's a beautiful book. If our readers are out there, listeners, Where We Once Belonged by 𝚅𝚑𝚑𝚎𝚑. Love it, love it. And then I've got the Cook Islands Māori Dictionary. Now, the reason, and this is by Jasper Hughes, 𝚃𝚑𝚛𝚎𝚘𝚗, edited by Bruce Biggs and Rangi Moika. And I got this for my 21st present, so it's very sentimental. But what I love about it, it is a bilingual book as well. So back in the day when I was living in the Cook Islands, I could double search a word. And yeah, so, and also the cover of the book is done by my uncle, the late Ian George, who also did the cover of Passages in Between Islands.
Ah, okay. Cool.
So Passages in Between Islands,
Yep.
if I share with you.
Oh, there we
This
go.
is done by my late uncle Ian George, but it's based on a painting that he gifted me for my 21st. So it has a lot of really sentimental attachment as well. It's not just a beautiful piece of artwork, but it's a great book too, Passages in Between Islands. And then we've got Samoa Queer Lives. And this is by Dan Tolapapa McMullen and Yuki Kihara. You know, one thing I always love I love biographies. I love autobiographical stuff, things that provide insight into people's lives. And, you know, this is such a richness of voices, especially our whakawhenua community. It's just, it's amazing. It's very humbling to read, and it's rich in voice and experience. So, you know, Samoan Queer Lives, a must-have as well. And then There we go. And this is by Emma Cruzeva'i, who I talked about earlier today, producing the text of culture, the appropriation of English in contemporary Samoa. So if you're an academic or you're interested about Samoan language and English or the crossover of how these worlds meet, this is a great book to read. It'll give you insight into how these different worlds come together, and it's very insightful and very layered, and it's a rich resource to have. And last but not least, 𝚃𝚑𝚛𝚘𝚗. Thank you.
I don't know where to start, Audrey. I'm just so grateful that you were so quick to get back to me. Thank you so much for coming through. I am so glad that you are open to just being celebrated like this, because you should be, and especially with this new body of work. So, wishing you a lot of love, all the best, and you are now officially part of the ReadswithRosa podcast family. No badge or anything, but a lot of alofa coming your way. So, yeah, I'll just hand it over to you just to wrap us up with some more gems or some final words, some encouragement.
Oh, wow. You know what, Rosa, you're a real blessing, because I've been following you for a wee while now, and just that sense of alofa, right? Of love, of insightfulness, but allowing different voices to have a platform to share their work, their perspective. It takes time and courage to just I was thinking, when is she going to reach out to me? She's taking time to come and, no, just kidding. I thought, wow, how wonderful. Some people play games with, I'm this and I'm that, da, da, da. But like I said before, I've come to a point in time where it's about time that I start sharing more about my work, and to connect with someone like you who's putting in the hard yards to create such platforms. It's my privilege to be here, to connect with you, to connect with an audience that maybe never knew of me before. And that's okay. That's okay. You know me now. And I'm just really enjoying it. And it sounds so cliche, but it is true. It's a real privilege to be on this platform and to be able to speak with my own voice, my own words, and be in what I believe is a safe space to be open and to create that other insight and dimension to my work as one of the many Pacific Island women writers. Many? We need many more. So that's my other challenge to writers out there, aspirational writers out there is, yeah, you might be sitting behind your laptop or your phone thinking about writing, thinking about publishing. But remember what I've shared today. Be bold. And if you want to be a creative, step outside your comfort zone and share your dreams with others, because often that's the only way things happen. If you step out and let people know, you'll be amazed with who you might be able to connect with to make things happen. But the most important thing is to be bold and to be brave. And the only one that has to believe in your work is you. If you don't believe in your work, don't count on others believing. But, go for it. And Rosa, thank you so much for giving me time to be here from Samoa.